we've seen a lot of responses to the pulling out the Paris agreements from all over the place. And I have in my notes, like I said, I took a lot of notes for this. I titled this section "Asshole Responses," and I guess this is ordered in my
13 minutes left, just FYI, Brandon. So
I mean, we can take as long as we want.
Yeah, fair enough.
But so yeah, so I want to start off with my least favorite response. Immediately upon hearing this, people said to themselves, America's pulling out of the Paris Accords. There are only two other countries not in the Paris Accords, Nicaragua and Syria. And so the conversation, or rather like the surface of the conversation became America's leaving, joining these two climate denying countries. Like they're leaving their place as this global leader in science or whatever, and joining the third world, Syria and Nicaragua. And article after article, headline after headline, Syria, Nicaragua, USA, only countries not in Paris Agreement. And just based on that headline alone, and also tweets from people, right? Nomiki Konst tweeted out when she heard this, assuming she knew which countries were being referenced by the map she was looking at, that oil buyers and oil sellers. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? Nicaragua and Syria, oil buyers and oil sellers? I guess those are the only two. And so I thought it'd be worthwhile to actually explain why Nicaragua and Syria are not in the Paris Agreement, right? So Nicaragua is not in the Paris Agreement for the reasons why Richard Adair said. They thought it provided too much cover to polluting nations, developed nations, to pretend as though they were actively fighting climate change, actively keeping it below 2 degrees, while engaging in actions that would make sure it rose by up to 4, which would be devastating for the environment. And so Nicaragua abstained under President Ortega. And right now, they're planning to be, 90% renewable by 2020.
Yeah.
They didn't sign on because it was weak, and they felt that it was actively displacing the burden of climate change, the cost of climate change, onto the developing nations, specifically in the Sahel.
And they said that they only produce 0.03% of the global carbon footprint, and they're being touted as being some part of a global South that's actually contributing to it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that.
Go ahead.
Awful.
I was just saying.
But this is a position. Yeah, but this is a position that was echoed by climate scientists as well. The idea that this whole thing is theater, and it can be counterproductive. Syria is not in it for a more obvious reason, because they were in the middle of a violent civil war at the time, and this is a more complex scenario because they were kind of political pariahs. Which didn't stop North Korea, obviously, didn't stop other political pariah nations from signing on. But their reasoning was this civil war that we're in has been largely instigated by Western countries. It's been instigated by Western countries. It's been instigated by climate change. Actually, if you want to look at the drought that climate change caused, that's being an actor in ramping up hostilities and tensions within the country. And when they asked for support for these things, Western nations, the CIA was arming rebels. Western nations refused to actively help with relieving drought. So I believe a quote out of Damascus said that Damascus burning will produce less carbon emissions than Paris or like the rest of the world. So it's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so reliant, especially in America, because we have this ridiculous car culture, we have this ridiculous idea, and I think a lot of it also, because climate change, like everything else, is intersectional. A lot of it's being driven too by this toxic masculinity of I have to have the biggest car, truck, whatever. I have to roll coal. I need a Hummer. I need this. I need that. That combined with the consumerism that is, inherent to capitalism, it leads to nothing but wanton and rampant destruction.
Yeah, well, I mean, America
is a simple fact of life.
America is one of America's biggest exports is climate change denial, right? So that is essentially one of America's biggest exports. Exxon, as a company, as John brought up, spent years manufacturing dissent in the field of climate science. They paid millions of dollars, taking their cue from cigarette companies in making sure that there was contradictory science out there. So if people wanted to deny it, and
you have to use quotes. You have to use quotes. When you say science, you have to use quotes. When you say Exxon made science, that wasn't science what Exxon put out.
Exxon put out propaganda. Exxon muddied the water with climate denial propaganda, and it's
that they knew to be false at the time that they were putting it out. It wasn't as if they were operating from a faux sense of ignorance, but they actually knew it was counter to the truth.
Yeah, and it's something that we're still dealing with now. To this day, where people are able to pull up, an article that says, "Oh, climate change is actually happening." So that's just worth noting. And I feel bad because Bernie Sanders was also contributing to this narrative that, well, the United States is joining, essentially, for lack of a better word, the third world. Like they're joining Nicaragua and Syria, these backwards ass countries.
Yeah, but his foreign policies always fucking sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's not even his foreign policy. I think a lot of it's just like his whoever runs his Twitter account sucks. Whoever runs has a lot of bad takes, and so for me, it just shows how deeply ingrained this idea of American exceptionalism is into the minds of people, right?
That 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure journalists are making the Nicaragua, Syria, U.S. all being out for the same reason, faux pas, as if it's nothing. And I think I heard one or two people make that clarification as to why Nicaragua was out versus, and I don't think I actually heard Syria ever actually explained on any of the coverage I saw. I read it in a few of the articles. Yeah, the
articles usually did it. Right? You read the article, it would explain why Syria and Nicaragua are not in it. Usually somewhere at the halfway mark. But the headlines in the implied message was America is no longer joining the first world or whatever, sophisticated nations. It's joining these backwards places to deny climate change science. And that was disheartening because the truth was even more frightening, right? The truth was even more disgusting than there are 3 countries in the world that deny climate change is man-made and are pledging to fight it. Because in reality, only America at the state level, at the federal level, is actively denying climate change is man-made in a reasonable way and should be fought in a man-made way. That's your headline. That's your clickbait right there. Yeah. America, literally the only country in the world to deny climate change is man-made. Literally, literally the only country.
And so it begs the question why they chose not to do that instead.
Because I think the idea of American exceptionalism is pervasive, it's ubiquitous. That's this idea that America's pulling out because it's no longer a world leader. It's no longer a world leader. America hasn't been a world leader since China bought us.
And as we covered earlier, the leadership role that we were playing in
not true.
As we were talking about earlier, the leadership role that we were playing in that agreement was preventing it from having any teeth and holding anybody accountable. So the idea that we're pulling out again, go there.
To be perfect, the only thing America leads in is mass shootings.
Yeah, those.
The only thing America leads in is mass shootings and teen pregnancy.
That's it.
So. I mean, it's funny. That's actually a real shitty thing to do, right? We went into the Paris Accords, made them worse, and then left. That's can you the hubris of that? We went into the agreement, made them worse, and then just left them. Fuck it. We don't even want to do this anymore.
Yeah, total dick move.
I mean, this is for me. This is just one more thing in the long line of because a lot of these takes are the reason why I pulled out America lacks a sophisticated leader, right? We're no longer a world leader. Trump is not a sophisticated leader. This is more Trump is chaos. Trump is destroying the world narrative, and that's why I'm more sensitive to the people who are saying, "Well, this was useless anyway." Let's not make a mountain out of a molehill, because. Yes, the political ramifications of this are going to be huge, right? We already have people like Corbyn talking about a carbon tax, taxing American goods, putting people are actually actively talking about sanctions against them. I mean, and a year ago, as Naomi Klein points out, people would, the idea of sanctioning the United States for their pollution would be nonsense, but now it's actually on people's minds.
I think while we talked about the political ramifications, that we could have done whatever the hell we wanted and remained in the accord. Because of how it was structured, that whatever Trump's going to do now that we're out of it, we could have done while remaining a part of it. It's just
that was him just trying to feed to the base.
Yeah, it was a purely political theater. Yeah, go ahead, Adair.
They believed it was something that mattered. They believed it was something that if we just pull out of that, we'll show those leftists, we'll show those stupid liberals. But I mean, in reality, they could have continued to do everything that they're going to do now.
They had already rolled back the Clean Power Plan. They had already started rolling back the Clean Power Plan, and so that's where it comes down to. You have people like Elon Musk coming out going, people like Elon Musk, and other business leaders and business elites coming out and going, hey, I can't believe Trump is doing this. I know we're going to be on his presidential council. It's he said fuck you to the environment in day one. Like why is this that? That's why I said that there's political ramifications for this, but those ramifications really show how shallow people were actively engaging with this. Elon Musk had no problem staying in the presidential council when he was rolling back the Clean Power Plan.
Or putting somebody in charge of the EPA who didn't believe in climate change. Like,
no, he believes in climate change. Like, if you watch the press conference,
you put the dude who sued the EPA like a ridiculous number of times in charge of the EPA. Like, you don't give a shit.
I mean, there were many signs much earlier that clued us into what he was going to do with the environment, I think. Go ahead, Brandon.
I mean, I hate to be that person though. Like but the fact that Rex Tillerson and all these other company heads, Lloyd Blankfein from Goldman Sachs and all these other oil company heads, still wanted to be in this agreement tells you how bad it actually was.
Yeah,
because
it's like,
I mean, I know why.
I was just gonna say that when I heard that Trump had disagreed with Exxon and Rex Tillerson on this, I was like, okay, well, I'm glad he's disagreeing with them. So I guess Exxon doesn't really run the White House if he's going to disagree with them on this. But at the same time, this is not the thing I would have hoped he would have disagreed on. Like,
well, a lot of people are disagreeing with this because it actually makes it harder to trade in natural gas. It's like a lot of people, they're disagreeing with this because it makes it harder to trade in frack stuff. It makes fracking more difficult for them. Like, it makes fracking less profitable, even though it's just as bad. It's worse for the environment because of all the methane releases. So people like Lloyd Blankfein, who actually invest money in the fracking industry, as far as if I'm remembering that right, like, this actually hurts their bottom line, and it has nothing to do with the environment.
Yeah.
Exactly. Tillerson just wants to continue polluting. He wants to continue polluting, and realizes that this is going to get them undue attention from people.
Exactly. That's one of the silver linings for Trump has been his extreme selfishness, greed, and self-centered perspective on everything has helped prevent him from having the types of successes that a lot of the powers that be that we're expecting. So, like, they were expecting him to get less something passed on healthcare, but more something passed on repatriation of funds from overseas and some sort of tax bill getting passed. And the way that Trump goes about things and how selfish he is about, more worried about the meetings that he's setting up with foreign leaders or phone calls that he's getting from foreign leaders, that is actually preventing him from being able to pass things in Congress. And so that's a silver lining to his narcissistic nature. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the foreign leaders or the business elite, right? Like, because Justin Trudeau also came out with very strong words. But for people who know what Justin Trudeau is actually about, it's like he was all in on the Keystone XL. He's all in on tar sands.
About laying down those pipelines. That's all he wants to do.
He is like, to the point in which he was not only violating, or rather his tar sands project was not only violating the spirit of because you can only really violate the spirit of the Paris Agreement, with only violating the spirit of the Paris Agreement, but it was also violating the UN Council on Indigenous Rights. Like, it was also violating the rights of indigenous peoples. So, I mean, but here's the thing, right? This finger wagging from the business elites, this finger wagging from foreign leaders, is not going to hurt Trump with his base. It's not. No. It's just going to make it's going to make him look more powerful. He gave the rest of the world the middle finger. This is honestly, this Paris Accord leaving Trump, right? As a descriptor, right? Trump who leaves the Paris Accords is exactly who a lot of people vote for. Like this. I'm going to give a middle finger to the rest of the world, Trump.
Yeah, to everyone. They just refuse to acknowledge or recognize that he's doing it out of his own self-interest and not out of theirs, which is the key component that I think that they're missing out of this equation.
I mean, this raises a larger question, because we know who wanted to pull out. Pruitt wanted to pull out, and Bannon wanted to pull out. This raises a larger point about the fact that the kind of ethno-nationalism that Bannon represents, right? That kind of ethno-nationalism is a barrier to climate, actually fighting climate change, which requires global efforts and requires global moderation of use. You can't just fight it by yourself. You have to actually engage with other states.
And I guess to touch on we were talking about how the Exxon knew for a long time, and that I think America's known for a long time, and a lot of Americans have known that, and the science has been coming out, especially more since 2000, regarding that the world cannot sustain everybody living like Americans. You know, the world can't eat beef like America. The world can't drive like America. The world can't have the big trucks and the SUVs and all the things that we've come to accustomed to as part of our commercial capitalistic existence in America. The rest of the world can't do that, and making more money and having it all be more profitable won't resolve the problems that are going to occur as a result. And that is something that we haven't really wanted to deal with, despite having the evidence thrown in our face over and over that it's just not sustainable.